you somebody who struggles with communication, like you don't know what to say or what you're saying just isn't landing with people, so you end up spending a lot of mental energy trying to think up the perfect thing to say? If you have an open throat center in your human design, communication can be a bit of a struggle for you. You might be somebody who is so afraid to talk that you just stay quiet, or you might be somebody who talks all the time. In today's video on what it means to have an open throat center in your human design, I'm going to help you get more regulated in your communication so that it is more impactful, intentional, and well received. I'll also give you tips to help you navigate the challenges of having an open throat center and its gifts, so definitely stay till the end for that. Welcome to my channel on human design, and welcome back to my loyal subscribers. I do appreciate you. If you don't know me, my name is Anna, and I've been giving human design readings for many years now. And my mission in sharing human design is really to help you live better by living more as yourself. And our open centers are often places that we can feel pressured to live not as ourselves, to operate differently from how we're designed to operate. For example, with the open throat center, you might feel a lot of pressure to talk consistently when you're really not here to be a consistent communicator. So how do you know if you have an open throat center? First, you need to look up your human design, and I'll drop a link below where you can do so. And you'll see a chart with all these shapes on it. Now, those shapes are called our centers. So the squares, the triangles, and everybody has 9 centers in their human design chart. They can be white, they can be colored in, but most people have a combination of white centers and colored in centers. So I have circled this person's open throat center on their chart. It is the square. It's actually called, in traditional human design, the town square, because all of the energy of your chart is actually headed towards your throat center. So it's white on this person's chart, which means that it is open or undefined. Now, if it was colored in, it would be called defined. There is a nuanced difference between having a center undefined and open, but just for simplicity's sake, if this center is white on your chart, I'm going to be calling it open. Now, all our centers govern certain arenas of life. The throat center has a few different themes: communication, if you haven't guessed, verbal expression, and also manifestation through action. I'm only going to be focused on the first 2 pieces, communication and verbal expression, because in traditional human design, manifestation is really just for the manifestor type in human design, and to a certain extent, manifesting generators. For the other types, following your strategy is really the best thing to make things happen. And if you want to go deeper into the intricacies of that, you can always book a one-on-one session with me. So back to the open throat center, 28% of the population has an open throat center. That's not very much of the population. Let's start with some of the challenges and pitfalls of having this center open. So you might actually be somebody who seeks attention. You might be taking actions or speaking just to get attention. You might be somebody who just needs to be the life of the party. Another pitfall is that you could be somebody who blurts things out or interrupts people or talks over people. You might notice that what you say doesn't land with people, or maybe you don't notice that it's not landing with people. You might feel a lot of pressure to speak, to fill silence. You might be somebody who's really uncomfortable with silence. You might have a fear of being invisible, so you talk too much. You could also be somebody who's fearful of talking, so you don't talk that much. You might be somebody who doesn't know what to say or how to express yourself. You might spend a lot of energy trying to figure out what to say. And you also might be somebody who feels really dominated in conversations with others. Having an open throat center is really a call to speak more intentionally. So here's what I suggest. Number one, wait for the pressure to talk to dissipate before you speak. Know that when you're around people with a defined throat center, which is the majority of the population, you're gonna feel a lot more pressure to talk. But if you, for example, think, oh, I have to say this thing, pause. That's a really good indication that you need to let that pressure dissipate. It can be really helpful to wait to be invited to speak or wait to be inspired to speak. Now, I know that does sound restrictive to wait to be invited every time that you want to speak, but I would really recommend experimenting with it and see if when you do wait to be invited, if what you say is more impactful with people or if you find that you have the right words. You can always let the people in your life know that it's a lot better for you to be invited to share. I also suggest that you do not plan out what you're gonna say. For example, if you have to give a speech or if you have to have a hard conversation, like don't script it out or ask ChatGPT what to say, because the right words typically will come spontaneously to you in the moment. Embrace this unpredictability in your verbal expression. Again, you're not here to speak consistently, you're here to speak more spontaneously and unpredictably. Get comfortable with silence. You might want to try a silent retreat if you're one of those people who talks nonstop and has the open throat center, just to build that muscle. And whenever you feel the urge to seek attention or get attention, turn your attention onto others. Know that our open centers are actually where we attract other people to us. I don't think this is talked about enough in human design. So your nonverbal expression will actually draw in invitations to speak from others. Trust that your silence is magnetic. You might notice that when you're invited into conversation versus when you initiate conversation, that number one, the right words will come to you, and number two, you'll find yourself in the correct conversations. Now, if you're really resistant to wait to be invited to speak, you can always rely on your authority in human design, if you're familiar with your authority, to know when to talk and what to say. Okay, let's talk about the gifts of having an open throat center. So our open centers show us where we have the potential to be the most wise. So you have the potential to be the most wise in communication. You might thrive in communication jobs such as broadcasting or PR or marketing. You might be somebody who's very talented at connecting other people to their voice, or you could be a voice coach. Another gift of having an open throat center is that you can actually kind of speak in different voices. I sometimes notice that people who channel have open throat centers, also politicians, also really great actors, right? You can impersonate different voices and sound convincing. Some of the most masterful orators and speakers have an open throat center. This is because our open centers are also where we are most sensitive and can amplify the energies around us. So if you're hypersensitive to the audience you're speaking to, you can really speak to them. This is why mapping out what you're gonna say, let's say if you have to give a speech, might not be super helpful. I mean, you can always have like an outline with notes, but the right words might really just flow to you when you're in that environment, when you're in the room with the audience. I looked up the charts of some American presidents who are famous for being orators, and they all have open throat centers. So Bill Clinton, Abe Lincoln, Obama, and JFK, all open throat centers. Bill Clinton's a really good example of somebody who expressed both the shadow and the wisdom of having an open throat center. It's really said that he could really read a room and speak to a room and make every single person in the audience feel like he was talking individually to them. But if you remember, as I do as a 90s teenager, Bill Clinton would often have a really hoarse and raspy voice because he was overstressing his vocal cords, which can happen with somebody with an open throat center because they are talking too much. Another gift of having this open center is being able to really sense who is speaking authentically and truthfully. And I've noticed just anecdotally that people with an open throat center can be really gifted listeners, right? Once they have mastered that lesson of overcoming the need to fill silences. And I once remember being in a study group during my human design training, and I just remember that the most silent member was the only one in the group with the open throat center. But when you would ask him, oh, what do you think, to share, he would definitely pause, but then something pretty spot on would come out. So in closing, just trust that your nonverbal energy can really pull people in, that when you wait for the right moment to speak or to share, you might find that the right words just spontaneously come. And know that in your communication, you can really meet someone or an audience where they're at. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care, and please do subscribe and like this video so I can continue to help you live better by living more as yourself.